people who are going to apply for chickens are the ones that are really freaking serious and they have the money to do it. Otherwise, they're not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to still people doing it illegally. They're, you know, and unless we can see it, there's nothing we can do about it. You know, the neighbors can complain, but if the neighbors don't want us to, you know, enforce, there's nothing we can do. And if they're not willing to be involved, well, I don't want to be involved. Well, sorry then, there's nothing I can do. I can't see it. I can't do anything about it.
Head on.
Mine only turns green.
The
three
ellipses,
dots.
Oh.
that turns off your mic.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, Mike.
We've been automatic for so long.
Yeah.
I forgot how it
So,
worked.
you know, when you turn,
Right.
We'll wait till it gets back, just move it that way, yeah.
these issues that. You're ready then. I gotta start the recording. Oh,
Yep.
All right, we will go ahead and call this admin committee meeting to order. As a note, before we get started, we do not have a quorum this evening. We only have 2 members of the committee here at the moment, so we can conduct the meeting for informational purposes, but we will not be able to vote on take action on any votes this evening. So anything that requires a vote will go to the next meeting, but we will be discussing it tonight. For roll call, the 2 of us that are here is myself and Charlie, and we have Jay in attendance with city staff and Mike. Seeing that we have nobody in attendance from the public, we will go ahead and move on to the sewer water fee increase information, which Deb is going to present.
Do you have the
I do,
thumb drive?
yes.
Awesome. So basically, I'm just going to run through some information through a PowerPoint. It's a short one to kind of lead up to what we're asking for tonight, or what we're asking to discuss tonight. This is based on Ordinance Chapter 13, Section CO5AC, which is our current ordinance, which is expiring this April. So every 3 years, we set our water and sewer rates with the voted and agreed upon increases, and we'll need to do that again for May 1, 2024. So just a brief explanation as to where our water billing fees go. Okay. We have our sewer water utilities, where we charge customers to build and maintain our infrastructure. That includes our treatment plant, our storage tanks and wells, our underground piping systems, as well as 24-hour operations, which is our payroll and benefits for our operators. Our rate structure is based on 2 types of fees. We have a fixed fee, which has a base, and then a variable fee, which is determined by volume of water used. So your fixed fee is the price the customer pays as a base charge to maintain operations. We call that our maintenance fee. We also use a fixed fee to repay our loans and bonds that we use to build our plant, maintain our tanks, wells, and piping. And in our case, we call that our infrastructure fees. Those also can be referred to as flat fees. Our variable fee is the price the customer pays per volume of water. This reflects the cost of providing water, including chemical treatment for safe, clean water supply, and energy to move and deliver the water, as well as cleaning the waste discharge to prevent pollution to our public waterways. This information can be found at EPA.gov. It's fairly standard throughout the country, as all wastewater plants and water systems work. That's okay. Okay, why the cost and importance of clean water? Well, I think that's pretty obvious to all of us. Our water system is not exactly clean when it comes to us for various reasons. We have waste from manufacturing, we have agricultural pesticides, of course we have the rain that passes through our air pollution, chemicals in the ground, animal waste, things that we do on our own, flushing down the drain, and so forth. Therefore, we have to have a system to clean our water, and that system, as we all know, is not cheap. I pulled this information from Statistica.com in an attempt to try to determine where the rest of the country, combined with us, looks as far as our monthly cost for sewer and water combined. You'll see that this goes from 2001 to 2018, and the cost of maintaining the water system has increased significantly. The reason I multiplied all of these figures by 2 is because we bill bi-monthly instead of, I'm sorry, not bi-monthly, every other month instead of every month. So the stats that I found were based on monthly charges, so I just converted it to what ours would be if we did it every other month, so 6 times a year. Okay. The next one is also from Statistica.com, and this is just the average water bill per month. I could not find anything that broke down the sewer and water separately, only the water. So this one is basically showing the national average, the extreme low-end cost, and the extreme high-end cost. Again, I multiplied this by 2. So if you look at the extreme high-end cost, you're looking at $230 every 2 months. Extreme low-end is $40 every 2 months. And the city of Harvard at the bottom averages $200 every 2 months. So our average customer, average citizen pays $200 every 2 months for their water. But that is water and sewer combined. That's important to note because the actual national billing was just for the water bill. Yep, thank you. More stats for you to look at, and you guys have this in your packet as well. Just on the left, you have a breakdown of from 2010 to 2019 of cost by usage, and on the right, a pie chart that shows what the average indoor household uses by fixture. Note that this pie chart does not include any kind of usage fees for things such as outdoor water use, sprinklers, pools, those types of things. This is only indoor water use. And on the bottom right, I've highlighted, and this is very important to remember, that variable water usage fees can only be controlled by the customer. Our meters do not move unless water runs through it. So when we're talking about those fees that are billed by unit, each user controls how much water they use. And we'll talk more about that later. And then this one, I'm not going to read them all. These are just tips that you can use for constituents to help control those variable usage fees on their water bills. Again, different types of things, high efficiency shower heads and fixtures, as well as something small like turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth. 5 gallons of water are used if you leave your water running for the average person who brushes their teeth, which is quite a bit. So little things like that I just threw in there that you can use when explaining things if you get any questions about water bill fees. Okay, Mayor, if you could go to the usage fees, it would be,
This one?
yes. Is that a Word document? Oh, no, the next one down.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Yep, that one. Okay, I took some information. I think I had originally sent out a pretty in-depth spreadsheet just so that you could look everything over and try to digest it a little bit. And what I tried to do with this is break it out so it's a little bit easier to read and for discussion more clear. This is a current projection for variable fees. So what we're going to have to determine for the next 3 years is if we're going to raise usage fees for variable rates, meaning use only. What are we going to do? What percentage are we going to increase? Are we going to keep everything the same? And how does all of that look? So the current projection, which is the May 1, 2023 rates, final of a 3-year increase, we have generated in this past year, by April, we will have generated $139,129 for this year. So with the 6% increase over last year, that's how much more we will have generated in revenue. Okay, so that's going to be the base that we start at. If we look at a 5% increase over the next 3 years, you'll see May 1, 24, 25, and 26. That's how much revenue we can expect to generate over the next 3 years with a 5% increase. Same thing for the 6% projection, and then I also did a 7% projection. And what I did at 6% is I showed you the difference that we would get over the 5% increase, and then for the 7%, I showed the difference we would get over the 5% and then the 6%. And this is one of the things that this committee, as well as the council, is going to be asked to decide on, is what we're going to do for the next 3 years as far as increases in usage fees, if any. Obviously, we can't decide that tonight, and I was going to ask that we not decide that tonight. It's a lot of information, and it's a lot of thinking that's going to be required. So basically, the intent tonight is to present the information so that we have a month to think about it. You can ask questions, look into things on your own, for a decision next month prior to our new budget cycle.
I guess the question that I would have that I would want to see, or I'd like to see if possible, alongside this.
Could you speak up? I can't hear you.
Sorry, trying to talk into the microphone. It's either deafening everybody or you can't hear.
Is it on? Is it
You
green?
never
The light's
deafen
on.
Okay.
anybody.
Yeah, the
believe
light's on. Sorry. We've got all the numbers of what we would be estimated to project increase. Do we have it? Can we lay it out side by side with what our estimated projection cost increases might be? If we know any of that, or I guess what our, like, how it would reflect on the budget, because
Yeah, I'll
if-
have that coming up, actually. We're going to talk about that as well. And that was part of the original spreadsheet that I sent out. We're going to talk about, basically, our increases for this coming year are going to be payroll increases, or the requests we're going to be making are going to be payroll increases, maintenance increases, and infrastructure increases.
Okay.
Those are all going to be flat fee increases. So one of the things you'll need to decide, and we already talked about this briefly, is are we going to do a usage fee increase at all? And if so, what that's going to be. But I think it'll be easier for you to determine that once you get the information on the other requests for the maintenance and the infrastructure.
bingo, yeah,
Yeah.
because my own opinion for myself is I'm all for the city making, bringing in revenue where it can and how it can to run and operate a business, but I also am not a fan of increasing fees for the sake of increasing fees.
Correct. Correct.
And that was my concern is the usage fee people don't see so much because they, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that was my fault. The flat fees is where they get mad.
Right.
And, which is, fair. I mean, nobody wants to pay more than they should. But my own opinion is that we got to be careful not to add insult to injury and, double down when we don't need to.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I was asking. So I want to compare side by side, but you already covered it. So
Well, there was a spreadsheet that showed the shortfalls based on, depending on how much we increased.
And I'll have that.
There was a shortfall at every level. So that kind of answers the question.
Well, not really, because basically, so your usage fees, which is the fees we're talking about now, these increase every year regardless when we set this ordinance. And the reason that they have to increase is because our costs increase based on the cost of living, right? Our payroll increases, our health insurance increases, our pensions increase, those kind of things
Our energy
increase.
costs increase.
Our energy costs, our treatment, our chemicals and those kind of things. So that's all kind of combined in this usage fee. And obviously, the more water our citizens use, the more it needs to be treated, the more money we need to put towards that, the more energy it costs to run it through the system. So that's why we do these types of increases on a percentage basis in 3-year increments.
Yep.
The flat fees, which we're going to talk about next, are the fees that are going to cover what you were talking about, where there's some shortfalls with our infrastructure and our maintenance in those kind of costs that are required to drive the money that's required for those costs. So we'll talk about that next, and I think once we get everything out on the table, it'll all come together, and then we can kind of hash it out from there.
So think of the usage fees as your operational expenditures. So operations being labor, your expenses for operating the system, so electricity, chemicals, and labor. Those are the main drivers. The other fees are to pay for the equipment, the infrastructure, and the maintenance of the equipment that's being used. Those are the flat fees. So because labor always goes up, it never goes down.
Yep.
Chemical prices always goes up, electricity always goes up. That's why there's this built-in usage fees for increases. And the question is, what percentage, if any, does the council want to
Yeah, but does
to
that
use?
track? Does it track? I mean, if we looked at previous budgets and final revenues and said, yeah, we hit the nail on the head, our usage fees just took care of water treatment, and our flat fees just took care of, the new sewer plant and that sort of thing. Have we done that?
Well, if we stayed in
Or
with
does
budget,
it all
then
go
we
into
did it.
one pot anyway? What?
I said if we stayed in budget, then yeah, we did it.
Yeah, but
So your
what we-
budget's based on, how much revenue you think you're going to get, and you
But
take
total
that
rev-
amount and you don't spend any more than that.
I know, but that's totals. But we haven't actually divided it down the way the mayor just explained it and said, that the revenue that we're getting for usage just covers the treatment of water and that sort of thing. We haven't done that.
So the infrastructure fee is very easy to pull out because that's based on the
Right.
cost to service that debt.
The fee is, yeah.
Yes. And so all that gets lumped together in your
Yeah.
water billing, right? But, that one's easy to identify. Yes, it tracks, and that's the next discussion. On the operations side of it, if there's additional revenue that's available, but I think the answer is, our projected cost or expenses in operating the system are increasing, and so
Well, I know,
to stay
right?
ahead of that, that's why these projections were created and what percentage makes the most sense. So I think to come to that conclusion, you need to see the rest of the presentation to understand if those numbers kind of jive for what you're looking for.
So to answer your question, we've never taken and said, okay, the 6% increase that we're going to charge this year on usage fees, the $162,593 made what we thought the increased expense was going to be. There's really no way to tell. I mean, it's such a complicated system. That covers our chemical costs for the year, right?
The reason I'm asking this is because it seems, I'm wondering about the balance between the fixed fees and the usage fees. And if it was true that we actually are tracking that, in other words, we know in infrastructure, we're gonna have to pay this amount, and therefore the fee is some divisible of that. Period.
You're talking about the flat fee.
Yes.
Yes, we're going to talk about that next.
And then the usage fee just takes care of treating the water, pumping the water, because that's
Usage
a
fee is
variable.
day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and so that's what this rate needs to be.
Correct.
But my question is, do we actually know what those are? Because that seems to be the answer. Nobody wants to get into the hole on this.
Okay, well, the day-to-day operations is your payroll, so I could tell you what that's going to be. When we do the budget workshop, we can look at all that. That's all in the budget. All of your expenses are broken down in the budget, and your collectibles for revenue are also broken down. If you go back to the spreadsheet, to the PowerPoint, and you look at the second page, you'll see how we break down all of our usage fees in our ordinance, in our rate structure, and this is similar to what your bills look like, where you have your minimum sewer and water charge, and then you have, at the bottom, you have your, you have your late fees, you have penalties, so when we look at the budget, you're gonna have a penalty line item, you're going to have a moving charge. There's several different charges that make up all of these usage fees, and they're all broken down in the budget as revenue. And then on the flip side, your expenses are also broken down by line item. So if you, no, on our budget, when we do our budget workshop.
Yeah, but they're broken down by these categories.
Not these categories, but they're, well, I can't break them down by these categories. The accounting system doesn't work that way. So
I know, that's my point. This is-
So his question is,
all this is your rates, Charlie. This is just your rates. This is how much you're paying based on your usage. I can't tell you how much you're gonna pay, because I don't know how much you're using.
Deb, what he's asking is, so there's a certain amount of money to operate the system.
Correct.
Okay, which includes labor and electricity and all that. Does the amount that the bottom line of what that operational cost is, track with the amount that we've raised each year to
No.
cover that?
Not without some accounting work, no.
I'm not sure. I understand the question you're asking. I'm not sure.
I understand the
I'm kinda
question as well,
thinking
but
along the same line, like,
In other words, we collect, we'll just use arbitrary numbers
Okay.
to make this easy. So let's say it's $100 that we collect on usage fees. The expenses for those usage fees, is it $100? Is it $105? Is it $95? That's the question he's asking, such that the amount that we receive in usage fees basically just goes and pays for the usage. And
it is not
there's-
broken down that way, no.
That's the question he's asking.
It is not broken down that way. You have so many expenses.
Yeah, I'm not
The only thing I can
complaining.
break down specifically is how much it costs for maintenance and how much it costs for infrastructure. All of the rest of those expenses that we have on those, your infrastructure is gonna cover your bond. I can tell you what your bond's gonna be.
Right.
Your maintenance
No,
is
yeah.
gonna cover your repairs. I can tell you what those are gonna be. Your usage fees are gonna cover everything else, hopefully.
I kind of get where Charlie's going with it, because that's kind of where I was thinking too. I mean, it's okay if we don't have it all broken down to the penny in each category. I just, for my own thought, want to make sure that, I mean, if we have to vote for an increase at some point, we have to vote for an increase. If that's 6, 7, 10, whatever it needs to be, so that we can operate and not go into a hole, then fine. But I just want to make sure that for my own sake, it would be commensurate to what we really think it should be. If we project out a 5% increase in cost for the next 3 years, which, I mean, you're still guessing, then fine. If we're projecting out 7, 10, 15, whatever, outside the inflation that we've been seeing, because that's a fluke, hopefully. But I just want to see that it makes, you know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that it makes sense.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
That was it. I just want to make sure it makes sense, and we're confident in the decision that we make, because it is for a 3-year period. So that's all.
And so one of the reasons it's a little hard to project that far out is because it's hard to project out inflation. We have, right now, we're 1 year into a 3-year cycle for our labor costs, for the union costs. It is hard to project out more than 1 year as far as your benefits. All of that's your labor costs, all tied into this.
Yeah, but that's true with anything on the budget.
Right, but
So-
that's what these user fees cover. It covers the insurance, not just the insurance on the staff, but it covers that portion of the insurance, that covers the buildings, the equipment. You got car insurance, you've got gas in order to drive those vehicles. So that's where she said, that's where, if I can help you out, Deb, is saying it's a little bit of getting into the weeds, but we adjust our fees, or based on the revenue, the projected revenue, we adjust our costs. So we could surely add like 5 more staff members in order to make it in the public utilities. But if our revenue stream is not justifying it, we don't do that. So in theory, every year we do the budget, you're seeing where those user fees are covering everything. The maintenance fees, and correct me wrong, is actually the buildup mainly for covering the bond on the wastewater
That's
treatment facility.
infrastructure.
So,
We
so
do
in
that.
theory,
Yeah.
you're seeing it every year where it's tracking, without going deep into it.
So basically, over the last 3 years, Charlie, we did 6, 6, and 6, okay? 6, 6, and 6 covered what we needed. Didn't give us everything we wanted, but it covered what we needed because we were able to operate. How that 6, 6, and 6 was determined 4 years ago, I don't know. It wasn't part of that. Like the administrator said, we work with what we have, and these types of fees are variable because our costs that these fees cover are variable. We can't predict them with 100% accuracy.
Yeah, but you're asking us to determine how much of an increase we should put in and where, what area, on the variable rate as well as the fixed fee.
Correct.
And I'm trying to figure out in my head what that should be. And to me, because I think logically on these kind of things, is that, okay, how much does it cost? And that's how much we should pay.
I wish I could tell you that. I wish I had a crystal ball. I really
How much
do.
Charlie, how
I
much
can tell you that
wanna pay? How much
salaries are
got?
going to go up 3.25. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah,
I can't tell you
no,
how much
we're actually
overtime.
saying we're going to get more because if we need more, and that's what this is all about. So by adjusting the fee, you can cover it is what you have to have.
Yeah.
But I don't know what
The
So do
other
you want me
option
to
is-
tell you
The
how
other
much?
option would be to readjust the fees annually based on what the projected is for the annual change versus doing it at a 3-year whack, if you wanted to try and be more
Oh, yeah, yeah.
precise.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with predicting, I mean, these things are, you can always do another ordinance at some point if you had to.
Sure.
I mean, if you're so out of whack that
Correct.
you really.
Well, in fact, if let's say the council decided, we're not going to raise the rates at all for the variable fees, and you maintain the same rate that you currently have,
Well, that's the
staff
other-
will come to you and say, we don't have enough money, you need to raise rates.
That's the other thing I'm thinking about. First of all, Debbie, that presentation that you gave, this is the choir here. I mean, we
Absolutely,
we
right.
kind of get that.
Yes.
But that should go on Facebook and everywhere else at some point to explain why we're doing what we're doing.
I agree.
And when you get down to the toilet level, that's really necessary. But I think that, I want to be able to go to a constituent and say, here's why. And the
Well-
reason is because we have to spend this much money on infrastructure. We have to.
I'm going to tell you that when we get to the next page.
Yeah, and
So, but on the operations side, we know the cost is going to
course.
increase each year.
but we
We
know
just
that
don't
too.
know, we just don't know the value. We know what labor is going to be at least for the next 2 of the 3
But again, you
years.
always predict those things on
Yes.
every level of government.
Of course we
that
do.
there is.
Yes.
So this is no different than that. We would predict what those costs are the best we can, and then we would apply that to the variable side of this.
I would recommend you not go any lower than 5 and no higher than 7.
Yeah.
That is why they're in front of you.
But then I would be able to take your presentation and maybe a few other slides and put them together and say, here's why. This is why we have to do it. Nobody's trying to steal your house or anything else. What we're trying to do is make sure that you have a proper utility that works. And
Correct. And nobody works for free. And I
So
don't think any of the constituents in this town want to work for free either.
so I'm on board 100% for all of this. And I know we've got infrastructure has been neglected over the years because we could get away with it. Well, we're at the point now where it's actually probably costing us more to do the patches we're doing than actually fix it. I don't know what it costs to fix a main street Air Street when it blows up or some other street, but it can't be cheap.
So in terms of nailing down exactly how much our cost increases will be, we know what our labor is going to be, at least for the next 2 years, which is going to be greater than 3%. So you need to at least increase your fees by at least enough to cover that increase in labor. Plus, there's full expectation that chemicals are going to go up a certain percentage over that time, as well as the cost of electricity, which we don't know what those increases will be. So that's why it's a little bit wishy-washy,
Yeah.
because we don't really know what those
Yeah.
increases will be, but we do know they're coming.
Yeah.
And so staff has said, you need at least 5% to maintain status quo. You might consider up to 7% based on the other things that she's going to present.
And something I wanted to add with what the mayor had said is, we know sometime over this next three-year period, we're going to lose at least one staff member to retirement, which means replacement. In the meantime, we're already short one person to make sure the wastewater treatment facility is run properly. So these are added in.
Yeah.
But
I know.
so if I can summarize what you're looking for is just at least something to be able to say, this is what our costs are. This is what we need.
At some point, we're gonna have to sell this.
Right.
Because you know what's gonna happen. You
Right.
know, everybody's gonna say, whoa. And I think that, we can sell it if we do it right, but part of this is the justification I'm asking for.
Of course,
That's-
And I think that's something that we can
Well,
do.
I mean, I can do that. I mean, you can take all of those costs and you can pick okay, let's say you do 6%. So as May 1, 2024, by the end of the year, I'm estimating we'll have 147,000. Apply it to any one of those expenses that we have. I guess I'm just unclear on how exactly you want it broken down, because there's so many different variables here I mean, we're not gonna take that 147,000 and just like give everyone extra raises with it. We're going to put it towards the costs that are going to be upcoming. And the reason why we need to know ahead of time is so that when we look at something that needs to be done, we say, okay, this coming year, if we're going to do a 6% increase, then we're gonna have an extra 147 to work with. What can we do with it?
Yeah. As an example, the 1% sales tax thing we did, and we knew that 1% wasn't gonna do anywhere near what we needed to do. Right? And we pointed that out, though. We told the public that we're still going to be really short, but that just puts more emphasis on the need for the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying that was excellent justification for what we did. And that's all I'm asking for here. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying that, that we have to hit the nail on the head on this.
Right.
I'm just saying, what is staff recommendation for us to do it, and where do you think that will, end us up? And
That's what we're discussing.
Huh?
Well, I have a couple small things really quick. I do want to say that what you said about how we did the 6, 6, and 6 the last 3 years worked well, and that it covered the cost. That's good information for me, because that's the historical baseline. I mean, obviously, if 6, 6, and 6 worked, we really don't want to necessarily go to 5, because that would be a problem. So there's at least some historical basis. I did have a question about, so the union contract's for 3 years, okay? We're a year into that, and we're doing the 3-year, we're talking about the 3-year increase. Would it be, now, I don't know the details, so enlighten me, but would we be able to tie this 3-year, like at some point in the schedule, tie this 3-year increase shortly after the union negotiations, so we know right away for that next 3 years, so it's a block as opposed to overlapping? Does that make sense?
This just doesn't just
Unfortunately,
cover
no.
salaries, though.
I know, but I'm just saying at least the minimum,
So
because if the
you're
salaries go up
looking
by,
to try and make it coincident to making a decision based on what
to
the
help
contract-
apply to a more active, because that 1 year leaves it a mystery, because we don't know what's gonna happen with that union contract that 1 year. If we say 6, 6, and 6, and the union contract comes back and there's some kind of blow up and they want a 7% increase, well, then we're in a hole. If we're more apt to that, because we know we have to increase just to meet that. At least we have the baseline, so if we know, pay is gonna go up, let's say total benefits we know is gonna go up by 3 or 4%. Well, then you can come to city council and be like, we know 3 or 4% is the absolute floor, and that's just just to meet that, and we know there's additionals to that. That may help with a little bit more of the mental math in the justification, because that 1 year just kind of leaves me as a little,
But
Do we know what's gonna
keep in mind too, it also takes away our negotiating ability because we,
okay, that makes sense.
you know, because, honestly, this last time, we started in January of this year and didn't actually get the contract signed until, it was actually just into May. Even though, and then we had to go, well, we didn't do retro because that wasn't part of it. But even though the contract goes from May 1st into, of 23 until, April 30th of 26. The danger of lining it up that way is to say, well, then you definitely can pay more because you'll just raise the rates. Because
I got you. No, that
why
makes,
not?
that's good justification. That's what I need.
And
That's how
I'm
I
being
need, that's what
overly
I'm asking.
simplistic on that, but it also limits us, and yeah, it would limit us as far as being able to negotiate, and
That's
stay
fair.
within reason. And keep in mind, as pieces of equipment fail over time, we do need to plan a little bit to be able to take care of it without having to go into debt to do so.
That's a good point, because when you're talking about exacts, you're forgetting about the fund balance. So I can tell you exactly what we need this year and base it on these numbers, but if I take that all the way down to zero and something happens, now I've got nothing in the checking account to pay for that unforeseen. So you have to remember that some of this money doesn't all get spent. We have to maintain a fund balance for operating for the unforeseen as well. And we don't keep a whole lot in there, especially in this fund, because we need to manage these resources, but we still have to have a little bit of cash flow as well.
That all makes
So,
sense.
and
I
you'll
agree
see
with
when we
you.
talk about the budget next month, that if you look at this, let's just take the 6% projection and you add those 3 years, that's probably 1 year of salaries and benefits in the next 3 years. That amount will cover 1 year of salary and benefits. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're working with here. We will never have enough to cover our costs. That's why we budget every year. If we could cover our costs, we could spend it all and we would be done with everything.
Yeah. Now I'll bring up the reason why one of the reasons, is that, and it's a combination of the fixed and the variable rates. To me, and I'm guilty of this, by the way, is that I have a house that is not occupied right now and the water's shut off and I don't pay anything. I don't think that's right. I think I should be paying something. I think I should be paying the infrastructure fee. I think because the water is there and available to me, and it costs money to maintain that water line past my house, I should be paying that fee, whatever that fee ends up being. And secondly, I think that people who don't use very much water shouldn't pay for the variable rate for that water because they're not using it. And so what I'm thinking is that one way to sell this program and adjust the rates where they need to be, but based on something a little bit different. Again, the maintenance is or the infrastructure's on the infrastructure, the flat fees of what we have to pay for. And then the variable fee is based on usage. So, in other words, until you use 1 unit of water, or maybe it starts at 0 and you pay for that one and then it goes up to one unit, you pay that 1 unit and that's it. And by the way, I checked it out, the price, if the first 2,000 gallons that everybody's charged is about the same rate as it is above that point. So we're doing it kind of anyway, except for we're charging people who aren't using water for 3 units, whether they use them or not. That only, Deb told me that only covers 14 to 70.
No, and actually, if I could just stop you, because my next thing is going to cover all that. We're just jumping ahead a little bit. No, that's okay. That's all right. I have some figures figured out based on our conversation and based on final numbers that I was able to get. Total bills that we send out every 2 months versus total metered homes or properties that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to tell you the difference in revenue that we could get if we charged everybody for those flat fees
Okay.
that you'd like to propose we do. I don't have it, I don't think it's on the thumb drive, but it is in front of you on here. So if we look at, let's start with maintenance costs, because this is one of the things we need to consider, and that is possibly raising the maintenance flat fee, okay? So Alderman Schultz, do you have one? You have one, right? Okay. So your maintenance costs that we're going to be asking to cover in the upcoming year and possibly beyond, or, well, it will be beyond, is the +1 operator that Administrator mentioned. The utility department is severely understaffed. It has been operating on a skeleton crew for a long time. There's only 4 of them. And the new plant operations are very high-tech and requires more labor. So one of the things that Jim Grant's going to be asking for at the budget is to add an operator, with the intent that one of the operators that he has on staff, once that addition has been added, possibly be promoted to a foreman position that can mirror Jim for the next 3 years and then step into his shoes when he retires. So it's kind of a succession plan for him. At that time he retires, we would obviously have to replace that person, not necessarily as a supervisor, but as another operator, but we would already have this plan in place and these costs covered moving forward through some of these flat fees. The other thing we're going to be talking about next month at the meeting is a water tower maintenance plan. This is what we kind of touched on with this 10-year plan that is probably going to be more beneficial to us than trying to do our maintenance every year. For example, if we have to do some work on Tower 3 this coming budget year due to some deterioration that we did not know existed that is going to be required to be fixed, it's a $400,000 fix for one tower. We have the possibility of getting into a 10-year plan that for $360,000 would help us maintain all 3 towers, and the cost would be yearly, but it's preloaded, so it goes down over time. That's one of the other things, another example of what our maintenance flat fees cover. The third thing that we need to look ahead at is well 10 and well 6. Both need to be pulled and inspected. This should be done every 3 to 5 years. Neither one of them have been done for a while, and that's a $60,000 to $90,000 cost just to pull and inspect those wells. That's not to do any repairs that they might find once they pull and inspect them. And then, of course, as we've all talked about in the past, well 6 is a very shallow well. It pulls sand once in a while, and at some point we probably need to redig that well, which again, some of these maintenance fees that we collect would be saved up to go towards those costs. And then finally, we have the unforeseen, which we talked about. And some of our usage fees, outside of the flat fees, do cover unforeseen, right? So again, we can't pinpoint exactly what everything goes to. And a perfect example of that is well 9 this year went down, and we needed 150 some K to fix it. We ended up using the money we were going to apply towards painting the water tower to fix that instead. Luckily, we were able to budget for something that didn't necessarily have to be done right away, but we budgeted for it, and then we're able to pull that money for something that did need to be done. So again, usage fees and the fund balance contribute to some of that as well. The other costs that we have for fixed fee or for flat fees, and this is our infrastructure fee, is our debt service. In 2016, we pulled a bond to replace well 10. That bond is not coming due until May of 2026, and we pay $125,000 a year on that bond payment. We also have the land loan for the expansion that we got through the Harvard State Bank. That's nearly $60,000, $58,800 a year. That does not come due until 2027, but it balloons at $352,000. More than likely, we'll be looking to refinance that. But some of those infrastructure fees go towards that payment. And then finally, we have our IEPA loan, which we'll start making payments on this spring. We have estimated, based on our final numbers, that that loan payment with interest is going to be $679,283 a year. Our infrastructure fees need to cover that payment as well. That's a 30-year loan. We'll be paying on that one for a while.
And Deb, and was more for the general public, what is the interest rate on that loan?
0.85. 0.085, sorry. So that was a outstanding interest rate we got through the IEPA program. We also got loan forgiveness as well. So, and then we had a grant to apply towards that. So that, basically what I just highlighted is what we have looking forward for costs, okay, and why. Maintenance fees, infrastructure fees cover those costs. So if we look at the next box, the second one from the top, it shows our current rates. Our maintenance, we are charging $20 a billing cycle, 6 cycles a year. Infrastructure, we're charging $25 a billing cycle for a total amount of flat fees at $45. Alderman Gorman, this is where the information you requested comes in. The total number of service connections in the city right now is 2,862. If we multiply that by the $45 that we currently get for those flat fees by 6, after we pay our debt, we are short $90,000. If we were to just bill those who have service connections that are in operation, which is how we currently do it, it comes to about 2,816 homes every billing cycle, times the current flat rates, leaves us after debt negative 102,673. Okay, I just want to remind everyone, this debt includes the upcoming loan, which is why we're having this, one of the main reasons we're having this conversation.
Right, so just to clarify, before we started the wastewater treatment plant, we added the infrastructure fees, right? The $25.
We did, yes. And
They
that,
did not exist before then. We added them in anticipation of the, so when we added that
2019?
in, we did not calculate how much we would actually need.
So
We
that's not
estimated.
exactly.
We
what
estimated.
We estimated. So
Yes.
Yeah.
we instituted the fees as a gradual increase over time.
Correct.
So the first initial years did not generate very much revenue.
Right,
But we use that revenue to pay for part of the engineering for the plant,
yeah, correct.
which, is all part of that plant. And then, it finally got to the $25 level, I think 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And that number was based on, we had hoped it would, based on the amount of costs that is estimated to build the plant, the amount of grant money that we were expecting and loan forgiveness, that estimate was, hey, we think this is going to cover and we probably won't have to raise it. However, the cost of the plant was more than was originally estimated.
Right.
So in the end, we're short.
Yeah, I get it. I just wanted to clarify that. But to also clarify, for every new business or every new house we build, the impact on everyone actually decreases, correct?
yes, yes.
So there's benefit to, but the stress on the system increases.
It's true.
So
However-
So your operating costs go up.
Correct.
right.
But
we
that is
do
one of
have-
the reasons we did the upgrade. We can handle that right now.
Sure.
We can handle that up to a population of
14,000, it's
14
just shy of 14,000.
14,000.
Okay.
Once we hit around 11, we need to start looking at that, a little closer. But, right now, the reason we're making this big loan payment is so that we can handle the current capacity plus growth.
Sure. I'm not a member of this committee, but if we have this debt, we have to pay this debt, and I see no reason why not to increase this to $35. I mean, it makes sense, and I understand the burden on our constituents, but in the end, we have the wastewater treatment plant now. We have to pay for it. We have to pay for all of these things.
For the reasons I highlighted
Yeah.
in the PowerPoint, we've got to take care of our
And that's
water.
$35 every 2 months, right? So that would be-
Correct,
right,
yes.
Or
So.
Right now, it's $25, so it'd be $150 going up.
Essentially $17.50 a month.
Yeah, right.
And if you look at the third box down, that's the rate increase, that's the first proposal. That is to keep maintenance the same and increase infrastructure by what Alderman Schultz said, $10. And then it breaks down your, where you're at after debt, if you base it on Alderman Gorman's suggestion of every connection in town being billed versus only those that have active service. And so, you're a little bit better there. Now you have 80,000 to work with. Once that's done, and remember, that's not $80,000 that we just put into an account. That's 80,000 that goes towards the maintenance and the things that I talked about in the first box, which is your tower maintenance plans, your well 6, your well 10, those kind of things, or unforeseen.
I have to say, I appreciate Charlie bringing that up with the connections and the charges for the flat fees, because the more we talk about it, the more I feel like that's a fair thing to consider. because those water lines and hookups are still to those properties. Even if those properties are not using water, if the main to that property breaks for some reason, we got to go in there and fix it.
And the infrastructure is
The
there.
infrastructure is there that we are still
They
maintaining.
save money by not paying usage fees because they're not using water, but they should
Yes.
still contribute to the infrastructure.
Correct, and that's a fair assessment, I think, because I mean we do, and we also know that we've got properties that the landlords and don't have tenants in, and they just let them sit because for whatever reason. And obviously there's a notable number here. It's not like we're talking like $1,000 a year or something negligible. But there's something to be said here, and I think and like you said, it reduces the burden across the board for that to some extent. And I think that, the constituents that live here and work and, not die and breathe and whatever, we all pay our, I'm sorry, I got It's a Wonderful Life in my running through my head. That moment, but I think the thing is I think we really need to consider that as a very important thing to potentially change here, since we're going to be talking about this, because as a homeowner and as a constituent, and I pay the water bill too, and I don't have a problem raising the water bill to whatever we need to do to pay it, because I mean the water treatment plant wasn't even our choice; the state's in it.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of BS that I'm paying for a property that I own, whether I use the water or not, and the guy 2 doors down from me, if there was one, that's been letting his, the house sit empty for however long, doesn't pay anything, or it's negligible because he's paying, the base usage.
They wouldn't even be paying the base usage.
Yeah, so our hookup is the same, it doesn't matter if there's
Get a bill
water.
at all.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I'm pulling water from it, the water still goes to that property.
So, correct, just the house being there, even if it's sitting empty today, and that's the assumption, it's empty today. It could be sold tomorrow, it could be sold 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Either way, some of the value of that house is being connected to the water and the sewer system. Now, that doesn't give the city carte blanche to just start charging, but to get that value, somebody had to put those pipes in the ground, somebody has to maintain those pipes, and somebody has to make sure that everything that's going through or into that house, the water, is meeting the IEPA guidelines. So that's costs. And right now, it's costs, even though they're not actually, in some of these cases, or this scenario, not actually using water, we still have to make sure that water meets that level, that IEPA level. So we have costs, sorry, I started going off in a different direction.
It's all right.
But there is cost to get it there, and there is a value to the person that owns that house for being connected to the system.
Well, and to kind of go back, and Charlie, this, the way that we talk about it and we sell it, or at least to the constituents, we explain what these rates increases, that we're also doing this to be fair to the residents here, because when it comes to what I think of is if my main breaks in my street right in front of my house, the city has to come out and fix it and make sure that I have potable water going to my house, because that's the city's property part of it, and that's their line. So they have to come in and fix it. But I've also been paying into that fund because that's what I pay for. So I've paid my fair share that everybody, we all as a community pay into. If Joe Schmo has an empty house, it's been sitting empty for 20 years, and it breaks in front of his house, he hasn't paid anything in 20 years, and the city still has to come out and pay for it. So now we're all paying into it, but they haven't. So that's how I sell it. That's how I explain it to the average person, is these people, these 50 odd homes or properties that are sitting there, they're getting away with taking out our pocket.
When I look at my water bill and it says I use 9 units, does that mean I used 12? In other words, or is that 9 include the 3?
That includes the 3.
Includes the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So, and these are all valid points, and this is why we wanted to present this a month in advance before decision-making, because this is really important. I'm going to stress that this is not a decision that needs, that, should just be made without this thought process. And then, sorry, go ahead.
So we could possibly also look at what the rate would have to be to get the same numbers, on the variable side. If we just charge for, instead of a minimum 2,000 gallons, just charge per unit?
No, because we can't determine how many units that are going to be used. That's an
No.
unpredictable number.
No. Well, yeah, but we have history, all kinds of it.
We have history, but we never know from, if, I mean, you can't, usage varies. That's why it's variable. So you can't set an exact cost on that. People move out, new people move in, maybe somebody loses a job, so they,
No, I'm just saying, overall, for the entire system, can we determine, the difference between charging a minimum rate or a flat rate for 2,000, and then a variable rate based on the units over that, versus just having a variable rate for
From
Unit one.
From gallon one? In other words, not have a minimum charge?
Yeah.
So for those who use less than the 3 units would have a lower bill because
Except for they're gonna pay a bigger infrastructure.
Oh, yes.
I'm just saying.
I'm just talking about usage.
I want to know how many users you use less than the minimum.
I think that's the question, is
Well,
how
you-
many
you-
users
you-
use
you-
less
About
than
140.
140.
140 use the base, get charged for the base amount, which means that they don't use any more than that first 2,000 gallons.
And that's going to also carry in your segment of, well, I mean, that wouldn't be the people that have their water
minimum.
turned
And
off.
typically, those would be retirees or widows.
Businesses,
widowers,
small businesses
right, small
usually, yeah.
businesses.
Exactly, and it's another
So-
selling point, is where I'm trying to get to, is that, you can see, you're using the infrastructure, we have to pay for the infrastructure. You're not using the water, so we're gonna give you a break on not using the water. And I'm thinking that, but that means everybody else is going to pay some more, because,
How
Well,
much
yes,
did-
and
theirs
that's
goes
what-
down, somebody's gotta go up to make the difference,
Right.
right?
The-
And I just wonder if we can determine what that is.
140.
the minimum usage comes out to
2480 right now,
2480 per billing cycle or per month?
per billing cycle.
Per billing cycle. Okay, so,
So $12.40 a month.
okay, so let's just say $25, just to make it an easy number. So the $25 that, let's say, 140 houses don't pay, just to make it rough numbers, let's say it's that 140 houses you said that pay the minimum, let's just.
That's what they pay, yeah.
Let's
That was
just-
the last billing
Okay,
cycle.
but let's just, for the sake of argument, just say they use they use 1 gallon, so that, just to make it easy.
One
So-
unit.
Yeah, 1 unit, let's say, 1 unit, 1 gallon, whatever, just so that, let's say nothing. So it's that 140 houses times $25 per billing cycle. It's not gonna be,
You're not going to lose that much money.
it's gonna be negligible compared to what the hookup, the maintenance fee is gonna be. And I'm just going rough numbers at a
That
ballpark.
comes out to about $2,700.
Yeah, but when we were talking almost 12,000 between these, so, I mean,
No, you're not doing the math right, because I'm saying that we still have to get the same amount of money, but we're going to even that out over the usage scale more. In other words, a guy who uses 8 units will pay more than he would have.
So are you suggesting to make the units progressive, so that the
No.
more units?
There's no base fee. You just
No,
charge however
Just
many
charge
units you use.
straight whatever your usage
Per
is.
unit,
Per unit.
period. And so somebody who only uses 100 gallons, let's say, would pay for 1 unit,
Right, because they
which
would
would be
use.
like $8 or
right,
something
right.
like that. And then somebody who uses 1,000 gallons would pay $8,000. That's what I'm saying. Or whatever that number is, whatever that number per unit is, after we do the math to determine what we need to have.
but that's what I'm saying, if we charge a minimum for the first, what was it, 2,000 gallons? Is that
Yes.
what it is?
Yes.
If we only have 140 bills that go out on average, based on the last billing, if we have 140 households that fell under that, okay, that means that everybody else was over that. So Yes, well, so that's what I'm saying is that if we were to only charge per gallon used, or per unit, and there's only 140 houses that fall under that to begin with, the only people that are really gonna end up saving anything is the 140 households, because
Yes.
we already pay, everybody else already pays that. So I'm just saying rough numbers, we're talking a couple grand.
No, but the other people are gonna pay more to make up the difference, so the total's the same.
So we would increase the rate.
Yes.
So 140 households is about 21K per year at the minimum.
Okay.
So at, say, $25, it's 140
Yeah,
unit,
yeah.
140 times 25 times 6, right? So you're
But
right
you're not
on.
gonna lose the whole thing on every house, because they're gonna use at least 1 or 2 units, let's say.
Right,
And-
sure.
And so they'll pay $16 or whatever, not, so it's
It's a number less than 21,000.
yes. And that's the other thing, you can't even do the math.
No, you
Mayor,
can't, because we don't
we're-
know.
Well, no,
That's why it's
because we're-
variable.
Because we're saying the first 2,000 gallons, and we don't measure in gallons, we measure in units.
Right.
There's 750 gallons. One unit is 750
So-
gallons.
2,000 is how many units? We did the math, it's some .0056.
It's like 3 something. Yeah.
But, so what really it's units in this, so I figured it was 3 units, because that's the closest thing
Close.
you're gonna come to.
Sure.
So, the things that we're discussing require other, will require other expenses. Remembering that our entire accounting system for our utility billing is set up on
That's
this
what I was
billing
afraid of.
structure,
That's why I'm asking, yeah.
which will require our entire accounting system to be
Calibrated.
recalibrated, which will require extra funds to have BSNA come in and do that. It was a 4-week setup when we originally signed on with them, so I'm assuming it would probably be 3 to 4 weeks to redo it all. Would also require an ordinance change, and we would want to do research and find out what other communities are billing in that way to try to determine how much revenue we actually think we're going to get before we would determine our rates.
What was Matt's question about Rochelle? What was that about?
Oh, we're going to talk about that next. I had given original comparisons to just communities in McHenry County. He wanted to reach out to, he wanted several more communities'
Oh, I see.
information, which I have that in a spreadsheet as well.
Yeah, well, I looked at that pretty close, and I.
So
So
do we-
again,
what was the cost when we went to BSNA when we made that change? It was not inexpensive.
oh no, that was like a $60,000, if I remember, $40,000 to $60,000
So you're-
changeover. That was the entire system.
Right.
It wouldn't be that much,
No.
but it would require quite a bit of work. And then, our whole billing structure would change, which would probably change the way our bills look. I mean, we can look at doing it, it's just not gonna happen right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a
We wouldn't
while.
have to do any of that to add these houses, to do the increase in maintenance to the houses.
No, no.
It would be the business as usual, we would just build more houses.
It would be how your variable rates are
But
determined.
keep in mind, if you're gonna base everything on a variable basis, so let's say $8 per gallon, okay? Or per 1,000 gallons or something.
Unit.
Per unit, thank you. Okay,
Per widget.
yeah.
100 cubic feet.
So let's say we looked at all the variable costs, the operating costs and everything else, and figured it's $8. Year 2, it's gonna be $9, year 3, it's gonna be $10. The big assumption you're making is that you're going to pull the same amount of water every day. So,
Every day?
or every month, every billing cycle, that you're gonna have, because what's gonna end up happening is, someone like myself, I've got 2 kids that seem to think that they could just turn the water on and it just magically pays for itself. So my water bill's high.
I have one of those.
But one of them is going to be definitely out of the house in the next year, and by the time this cycle is done, both of them are going to be gone. So my water is going to drop, but we're basing this on a 3-year cycle, and I'm just using myself as a hypothetical.
It happens now, though.
Okay, well, but if
We know we
you're
get
going
the
to base it
base.
on just based on that, on the $8 per unit, okay, by not having a set fee, because it still costs money to get it into that house, by not having it as a set fee, you run that risk that if your actual usage drops, and it fluctuates, hot weather, cold weather, it'll fluctuate. We still have to pay for all of this stuff. We still have to pay for people to come out. We still have to pay the labor hours, and if that drops, then we're left with nothing other than to borrow money in order to pay our payroll. Now, again, I'm just drawing this out. If we go straight variable, you don't want to go straight variable because
It
it
only
is
covers
way
the
too.
first 3 units, Lou. We've already figured out what that impact is.
I see both sides of it because what you're trying to, or what we're discussing here is we have two fees, infrastructure and maintenance fees that are flat, they're set. You're trying to help alleviate some of that burden by taking away the set base fee on the variable side.
Yes.
Which in itself it operates like a flat fee.
So basically.
It's not, but
if-
it operates like one.
Regardless of how much water you use, you can pretty much guarantee you're gonna pay $24.80 plus 25 plus 35 every month, or every 2 months. At the rate we have, or the way we have it set up now. What you're trying to do is for those who who use less than that minimum, to alleviate that $24.80 and reduce that a little bit.
Yeah, based on whatever that reduction is.
Which goes back to our discussion that we had about possible senior rates or rates for those users who don't. It is possible, and I don't know the answer to that we would be able to figure something out for that where we would be able to determine that based on individual user with our system, but I don't have an answer yet from BSNA on whether or not.
I'm just saying that would be kind of a cool thing to do, I
Yeah.
think, and it would help us sell the program. And again, what I like are where somebody can show me this is what it costs, this is what you have to pay, and this is why. And I just thought that would fit better. I'd be easier to explain, and if it can't be done or it's too expensive to do, I fully understand. I'm just saying that these are
Well,
ideas.
at the end of the day, you're really talking based on the last billing cycle, 140 users that would benefit from what you're looking for.
Yeah, it was. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
everybody else is well above
Yeah.
that, so it's inconsequential to
Yeah.
them. And so typically, Deb and I had this conversation directly when we were looking at the vast majority of those 140 users are seniors who don't use a lot of water. And so maybe the answer is a senior credit that would allow us to maintain a current system we have without having to change or restructure everything.
Yeah.
But as a senior, maybe you could get a credit to apply to your bill to reduce it if you use the minimum amount.
Yeah.
And those are all things that we can explore.
Yeah.
I
Perfect.
think,
Okay.
Yeah.
you certainly have the option.
It's
that's
possible there's a
review.
programming, something within the system that we don't utilize now that would allow us to program, if there's less than minimum, it goes to this rate instead, right? And so those are all things that I can try to figure out in the next month or so.
Perfect.
I might
Thank
need
you.
your help with that, but.
I like the idea about that. Maybe we should explore something along those lines just to help with, like, at least with the seniors, like, maybe even if it's just a program that they have to apply for annually to
Maybe
see
it's
or whatever.
a
but
needs-based program. There's ways to structure that, and we can certainly explore that. So, but the main thing is, we need to understand for BSNA what the capability of the current system is to provide you with recommendations from staffing how to accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to do it this, obviously, you got a lot coming up with the new
That's all right.
budget
We'll see
cycle,
what we
but
can figure out.
I think once we're done with the budgeting and everything, I think that's something that, especially going into the summer, we can,
It's always something we can add to an ordinance later.
Sure.
We'll
Yeah.
have several options.
I think it would be great, I think it would be good public relations, driving, program that we could bring into this committee, and I mean, I'm sure Lisa would probably approve to at least discuss it, so maybe it would be low on your to-do list, but I would say let's look into some kind of relief program for that, at least to see what our options would be if we could feasibly put something together for that, because I mean, 140 households isn't huge, but in those households that, $20 could mean a lot, and at least it
Absolutely.
shows that we're trying. I mean, with the garbage program, we couldn't have a seniors program anymore, and people were kind of upset, and I get that. But if we can save a few pennies here or there for people, it shows that we are making the effort. We're not just out to rob everybody's pockets.
Is this just for our reference, really?
Yeah, I'll
Don't
touch on
we-
that
we need to
briefly.
discuss it. I mean,
No, we don't need
From
to
a time
dis-
perspective, we're already an hour and 10 into a meeting that's got 6 other things to talk about, or
We
5
do.
other things to talk about.
Let me just touch on some stuff real quick. The bottom box of the page in front of you is the rate 2 increase. That just shows what would happen if we increased maintenance and infrastructure. Again, these are just figures put in front of you. If you want recommendations, well, actually, I know you're going to want recommendations. We'll work on that and talk about that again in February. I have some in mind. I haven't discussed them with the administrator yet, which needs to be done, but we'll nail that down a little bit. But this gets everything in front of you. This is as far as we need to go as far as increases, okay? 5 to 7, 25, 35, so we can determine in between there, where we're gonna be based on what we've got coming up. So this just gives you a snapshot of that, okay? And then, Mayor, if you could just quickly, you don't have to pull it up on here, the spreadsheet that Jay just pointed out is the sewer water rate comparison. This shows what other communities are doing. Most of them are based on a 2,000 gallon minimum. And I have a disclaimer at the bottom of this spreadsheet. Some of the rates may be off based on conversion of the varied structures. I did my best to convert them as much as possible. You will notice on here that we are one of the few communities that do the flat fees. However, our rates are also less than most communities, even with our increases, even with the proposed increases. And each, the black Harvard at the top is where we're currently at. And then the green, blue, and red underneath is at 5%, 6%, and 7%. With flat fee increase on just infrastructure. And then the purple, brown, and pink goes to the 5, 6, and 7 with the total increase that you'll see on the sheet we just looked at. So you can look at that too in your own time. If you have any questions, just stop in. I'm always available to answer questions, and we can talk more in depth if you choose to do so.
So based on this list, you can see we're well below the average.
Yes, we are well below the average for usage. We're a little high on flat, but again, we're one of the few communities within this list that have built a new plant. We also have these other communities also charge fees we don't, such as radium fees, fees based on meter size, and there's a couple that I was reading about that are actually looking at significant increases coming up, remembering that these are current rates based on deficits and budget shortfalls. So I don't think we're going to be alone in our increases by any means. Costs go up, and we have to maintain and build new. So that pretty much sums that up. Think about it. We need to discuss it further next month and figure something out before May 1, and we can do that. If there's any other questions that come up, please just let me know.
I'd love to see this. I really like this comparison. Obviously, the more data, the better.
Right.
But I'd love to see where this is at, like in a year after they've done their budgets, and then compare like a couple years to see how we trend. I'd love to see that. So hold on to this.
Okay.
And
I'll
then
hold on
maybe
to it.
like at the end of the year, just kind of like
Yeah.
plug, like the ones that are compelling numbers, just kind of call and plug them in and just kind of
Sure.
compare. I'd love to see that, because if they have shortfalls and then all of a sudden their rates got to go up to like $30 a unit, I'd love to like wave that around in public and say, look what we did for you, compared to everybody else.
Right.
So, all right.
Okay. Any more questions on that?
No.
Good for now? Okay.
I want to say I apologize for us holding up the meeting that long on one topic. All right, park deficit, the reason that Jay is here.
Memo or
I'm sorry, PowerPoint.
PowerPoint?
Quick. This is a quick one. Something I'm going to mention prior to it, a comment's been made to me that there's been a lot of negativity and gloom and doom around this fund, and that is not the intent. The intent is to make sure that the deficit is understood, and and to be positive in moving forward. I think when I did the park presentation a couple months ago, I made this statement that what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. So we're going to take this, we're going to fix it, and then we're going to find what's right, and we're going to run with it. So it's a very positive thing. It is not a negative thing. I just want to say that as a precursor. This is a snapshot from our audit, okay? And so this shows how the fund balance is determined. Very quickly, it's determined by our cash and investments, what kind of receivables we have coming in, minus what kind of liabilities we have going out, our deferred inflows, which is what we expect to get down the road, and then we take that balance, it's subtracted out, and that's how we get our fund balance. Ideally, we want that fund balance to be above zero, but in this situation, year after year, our park fund balance has been in the red. The reason why is because we don't have any cash and investments because we've been operating at a negative fund balance. Our property tax doesn't generate enough revenue to get us out of that deficit, and our accrued payroll and other liabilities continue to add up. The $882,772 that you see in the middle that says due to other funds is the money that has been due back to the general fund year after year after year. Okay, we're going to fix that. We're going to give it back. We're going to take the money from the general fund and we're going to give it back to parks without any debt, and we're going to erase that. And we're going to
You're going to take it from parks and give it back to the general.
no, we're going to take it from general. It was already, we're basically, yes.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yes. So
General
when
fund
you
to
look
the
at the
parks
due to other funds, that's
fund.
been carried on the books year after year as a loan the general fund made to the park fund. Okay? The fund balance is still a negative. So we're going to forgive that loan, right? It's no longer going to be there, and we're going to take care of that fund balance. The auditors are going to do what they need to do at the end of the year to make this right as far as how we see it in the audit. In the meantime, we need to get rid of this 752,200, okay? How do we do that? We move it from one fund to another. Okay, when we talk about funds, we talk about on paper. We have Fund 01, which is general. We have Fund 04, which is parks. For example, right now in Fund 01, let's say we have 5.9 million, and in Fund 04, we know we have negative 752,200. So I'm going to do an adjustment in my ledger. I'm going to take 752,200 from Fund 1 and give it to Fund 4. Okay, no actual cash changes hands because these two funds share the same checking account. So the checking account balance stays the same. However, we now have less to work with in Fund 01, and we still have zero in Fund 04. That's important to point out because one of the things the auditors recommended was not only that we clear this deficit, but we analyze how to prevent it moving forward. How do we do that? We generate more revenue through our park programs. Okay. So what's that adjustment going to look like? It's going to look like what you see in the middle here, which I also did in memo form, hoping that we could get it approved tonight, but we can't. So we can't really vote on it, but we will put that on the agenda for next month so that we can clear that before the end of the fiscal year per our auditor recommendation. Any questions?
Is there any way that can go straight to city council, or does it have to go through this committee?
It could probably go to city council.
It could go straight city council.
We've already talked about it.
Right.
We've already talked, I say just take it straight to the council and vote on it.
We can do that. We can put it in the packet.
This has kind of been a dead horse we've been beating
Yeah, and we
for
talked about
years,
it.
and
We talked about it back in the summer, and the reason why we tabled it into now is because we wanted to see exactly where the fund balances were closer to the end of the fiscal year, and we're fine. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with it. So yeah, there's no reason why we can't do that.
The recommendation is to move this forward to the council. There's no vote needed, it's just that's a
yeah,
recommendation.
I'm comfortable with
Right,
that.
I'm just,
The two committee members that are here are
Right.
comfortable with that, I think, so. Executive decision.
I think that's
Now, I have a
shaky.
quick question on this, just to make sure. So, obviously, yes, we go to the 5147800 and 0. If we do nothing going forward, that number is going to go red again and continue to go red because.
It's possible it could,
Possibly.
based on where, because again, remember, we have no cash or investments in that fund, and we still don't. We're going from having negative to having zero.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, basically what this is years accumulation of operating costs exceeding what revenue is
Correct.
coming in.
That's correct.
Now, this is, the parks are not their own independent taxing body, so obviously this is a part of the budget of the city budget because it's
Correct.
under the city. So, aside from, just making the point, aside from parks revenue from programs, we may or may not be able to have enough robust programs to cover all operating expenses. Ideally, we would want to, but it'll also take time to do that. We would need to talk about it in the budget
Subsidizing, yes.
to subsidize it, which we've already been doing.
Correct.
They just
Right.
added it up over the years and left it in one account balance saying,
Right.
you owe me.
So basically, what we would do if we found that we needed to subsidize is we would budget for that subsidy, and then it wouldn't show as a deficit. We would just work within the means of that subsidy.
Correct, which
And
is what
balance
we've
it
been
out.
doing by default. We've just been.
Correct. We have been,
we've
and that's a
doing-
good point. We've been operating within our budget. This deficit has been carried year after year.
We've just been accounting for the subsidy, is what we're doing.
Correct. Yes.
So that's
And
that's
it's,
all.
and I'm glad you said that, because it means that it's understood. It's understood that it's,
The parks is a
Right.
cost that, it's an expenditure, because it's a service that we want to provide. I mean, we know that the pool costs money, and we often don't make enough money revenue on the pool, but it's something that as a community, we want the pool.
right.
So
And
we
we're
know it
going to
costs
talk
money.
about this in depth during the budget workshop too, when we go over the parks budget, and we've got some ideas with that as well.
Okay, good, because I want to
Okay.
get that finally.
Lou, you might want to call Lisa. I'm just saying, I think Lisa can just say, I don't want to put it on that next month's agenda, and turn it over to the city council for a vote.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I think the chairman has that.
Well,
You're co-chair.
so,
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
as
I'm-
mayor, I can put it directly to the
Okay,
council,
very
Yeah.
good. That
because
does
I
it.
control that
I,
agenda.
I
That's even
would,
better.
I would say that we should I agree with, we should notify her before that decision, just so that she doesn't feel like that she was left out of the loop. That's all.
Well, the other
Probably
option,
watching.
so to understand protocol, I can put it on the city council's agenda for this full city council to consider. But at that time, the city council could say, we want to send it back to committee, and you could make that
Yeah,
decision.
absolutely. I just, as a courtesy, just let her know we discussed it and we're gonna do it, just so she knows
So
ahead of time.
you guys have full discretion at city council.
We'll do that.
Yeah, just courtesy.
Do you
Okay,
need
so
any
I
further-
don't need that.
All right,
Okay, that was it. That's all I had on parks.
okay. Let's go back to revolving loan.
Okay, well, first off, I thought there was going to be a memo in here, but there was not, so I apologize. So in essence, our revolving loan policy that we have some funds that are set aside that is used to make low-interest loans to spur more economic development within the community. It is actually a facade loan. It's just for exterior purposes. What we're looking to do is to change that and add in that you can do some interior work with those funds. I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So it was originally, it's for the downtown district, right?
Right, so
Yeah, thank you.
just to give you a bit of history, under the Harvard Economic Development Corporation, an amount of money was given to the city that was used to create this revolving loan fund. And so the revolving loan fund allows businesses to take a loan out from the city up to $50,000 to update their facade. That is the current structure of that program.
Is that a zero interest loan?
It's a zero interest loan, and as they pay it back, it goes back into that revolving loan fund and then can be loaned out to another business. We would like to expand that program to allow them to do more than just the facade, because we think we could generate additional economic benefit to the community by allowing businesses to upgrade internal to their building, not just the facade of the building. And so that's what we're seeking to do, is to expand the program to allow us to loan to businesses to do things more than just the facade.
have we explored, now, I like that, I'm a huge fan of this program ever since it was brought up, because I didn't know it existed, and I think that it's fantastic, because especially with high-interest loans, the way the banks are right now, I mean, businesses are going under because they can't borrow the money. So I like that we want to expand this. Have we looked into, like, what, if we can charge any interest on this? Not to say I want to rip anybody off, but I mean, like a nominal interest rate to kind of offset costs and things.
We
but still
always
be
have
fair.
that option to charge, and it's, it's kind of done on a case-by-case basis. But that is always something that we can do, and in fact, one of the recommendations is to charge at least 1%, because you have accounting fees, and then it also does help to regenerate.
That's what I'm getting at, grow
right.
that fund slowly
Just to grow it.
and,
So-
and be able to expand it more, I mean,
We want to grow the fund as well to be able to help more businesses, so,
Where does the money come from?
so the money was seeded originally years ago through the Harvard Economic Development Corporation. And so, and that money has remained there and has been, just been revolving for
Is,
20 years.
how much is in the fund?
Currently, there is 169,000 in the fund.
Okay, and is it
And
in an
there's-
interest-bearing account right now where we're making money out? Okay,
The
good.
money
that
market
was my
account.
next
Yep.
question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, but right, I mean, that's good.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's doing very well, actually, and we have about 57,600 left on current loans to be paid back. So once those are paid back, if we don't loan anything else out, we're going to be in excess of 200,000 in that account to work with.
Well, we would like to grow it more, and so we have some ideas about doing that.
So, just a little background, how this is typically set up, and I'm only going from previous experience from other communities. Typically, this is economic development funds that are set aside by the state, and they are restricted to certain activities, usually just facade, or at least in the past, it's been facade upgrades. It does not mean that you can't use it for other things to help as far as economic development. You just can't take those funds and throw it right into the general fund and used for other purposes. They're restricted, so that's why part of the reason why they're recycled and sent back out. The idea is that you spur more development, you spur more tax dollars, more sales dollars, and that's how you replenish the general fund. So it's kind of making your money work for you, and that's why it's restricted. A lot of cities were only given X number of dollars. I know of one community that was only, community I previously had only was given, I think it was like $225,000, and it's restricted. And I think if I did some research deeper in this, I'd find that this is very similar, because it was a national economic development fund that was given to the state levels, and the states decided to give it all the way down to the local level, because the local leaders know better what to do in their own community.
Businesses only?
So this is
Yes,
based on
yes.
policy. This fund that we're talking about is based on a policy, and it was funded by the Harvard Economic Development. So it wasn't funded by the state, therefore we're not necessarily restricted in this fund, but it is a special revenue fund in Illinois because it's driven by policy. So the policy can be changed, and then we can use that revenue from that fund within the parameters of the policy changes. So that's what they're asking for right now, because as the policy reads right now, we can only loan the money from this account for facade improvements in the downtown district. The policy change is going to ask for facade improvements as well as interior improvements still in the downtown district, which, once we make those policy changes, we can also do that. So, so it's special revenue that can be changed based on policy, not necessarily driven by statute. So that's a good thing, because it gives internal control based on administrator recommendations and what's going on in the community at the time.
So would we be able to, when you talk about interior, I mean, I know a business downtown that they built an apartment above their business that they moved into. They have a back apartment they never finished that they wanted to rent out. Now, I mean, would that be considered, no?
It would be your traditional, like, mom and pop type places.
Okay. Well, this is
not
I mean,
rental.
yeah, this is a business.
Is it for
but-
business improvements only, not
Business
not
improvements only,
residential?
okay.
It's not
Okay.
for residential.
Okay.
That was the term I should have
Yeah,
used.
yeah.
It's not for residential purposes.
So it wouldn't be like, for example, the people that are, the family that's looking at the Moose Lodge, the old city police station, they would not be able to they would not qualify either. That's not a business. It's a apartment complex, residential. It's residential.
They're considered a landlord.
Now, if that was to be.
What about their facade though?
It's
No,
not a business, though.
Yeah, it's not a business.
Right, it's not a business.
If they were going to put a business in there, they would probably qualify
Yeah.
for
Right.
that.
If it was a hotel,
For that, if it was a hotel, that's a business.
and that would interior too.
Once the
So-
policy's changed,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
The policy can be
Yeah.
written however the city council decides. Our recommendations would be to maintain it for business. not
Are
for
there any legal restrictions on the policy as far as like what we can, or we just kind of have carte blanche? I mean, as far as that goes.
I don't have that answer, and I can get that for you.
Okay, I mean, obviously it's that's a regular everyday double check the box anyway.
Once the
Um,
policy's written, it would have to be approved anyway, so.
Correct.
Yeah, well, only because I look at it and say, okay, well, obviously we don't want to just have it be, vague language. We want to be specific as far as internal, repairs or upkeep. It's like you want to be kind of like specific to some extent, like it covers paint, it covers flooring, it covers that. You don't want to necessarily say that, we're going to say, oh yeah, you can borrow the money and put a gold toilet in the back, because that's a viable investment,
Well,
like.
At the same time, if someone doesn't have, like, say, an ADA door, or say an ADA bathroom, ADA compliant, that is, they could get a small interest loan, essentially from the city, for up to $50,000 to get that work done.
Well, if they're doing a remodel, then they would probably it would need it to fall into code, so it's more of an incentive to get the remodel. Yeah, no, I think there's a million reasons to say that this is, why this is a good idea, especially these older buildings, because, I mean, who's got the money to make an entire doorway?
Well, and
wheelchair
I think we
compliant.
also have to consider not just the downtown district. I mean, look, there's businesses that are on Route 14 that,
You can bowl at one of them.
it would be nice. Well, no, I'm not worried about me, but there are other facades
You-
that
you
need
could
to be.
You could
yeah.
certainly expand a program to any business
Right.
within the city corporate limits. I mean, that's certainly up for discussion.
I think the general purpose of the policy, the way it is currently written, is to help keep the downtown area viable.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but it would be nice to know how many loans we've issued, over time since it began, and I don't know if we kept that information. And,
I can tell you the most recent loans,
We can gather that information.
but we could find it.
I think this is this is a discussion point for.
Yeah, I really like the idea of maybe expanding it to other businesses as time goes on. Obviously, I don't think the fund's big enough to handle everybody all at once, because we just don't have, if everybody came for a loan, again, back to It's a Wonderful Life.
Or
Everybody's
took a
covered.
$50,000 loan with the full amount that if it was there, you can only help
Yeah.
for businesses,
Right.
right?
So I agree, the downtown is the heart of and where we want to go, but I mean, as we discuss this policy, I think that with the idea that we want to grow, you want to grow this fund, yes, but we also want to eventually, I think, expand it out to the businesses on 14, the ones off 173, because they're within city limits, and they do reflect on the community, and even in those little shopping centers, like over by, where Bunks was at and things like that, if one or two businesses gets dilapidated, it kind of, sours the whole area, so, or down by where Sullivan's was. It all helps, so I think that we definitely should expand this and put some effort behind
Once
it.
it becomes, by tacking on so much as, say, a minimum 1%, you, again, start to grow those funds. Our next bullet point is another way to try to add some more funds without, the whole idea is to do this without having to use general fund dollars to do so. The other thing is, once it gets up to a nice, healthy level on its own, you can also do, down the road, tweak the policy again to do things like, if you expand your business, and add 15 new people, since it's outside of the enterprise zone or outside of the opportunity zone, it's 1%, but if you comply with everything or bring up to a standard that can be set, you can forgive a portion of it and still keep generating money into it without using general fund. Because I know I'll get a lecture down the road if I say that.
Dollars wise, yes, I think the administrative committee is kind of on point for that, but I think for the actual application of this, my opinion would be that the community development committee kind of I don't know, I guess kind of, I don't say manage it, but you know what I'm saying, like basically like.
The policy.
Yeah,
That would be the review policy.
Right, and so once the policy is fully developed, it would go in front of the community development before it goes to the council.
well, because what my thinking is that to kind of, I don't want to, like kind of,
I think the policy should be debated and determined in the community development committee.
Right.
yes, but to kind of like tail onto that is like, as community development is going to be, I don't want to say like managing, babysitting this program or whatever, keeping an eye on it. My thought is like every once in a while, we maybe put like 10 grand or something like that aside for a community development program, and sometimes it doesn't really go anywhere because, you know, we've got the plan for it, we budget that money out. I'd like to keep in the back of the mind that if we put like 10 grand away for something small, like an event or a program that community development is pushing for and it doesn't go anywhere, that instead of just dumping that money back into the general fund, it be considered whether we put that money into this program. Because obviously we don't want the general fund money to go into it. We don't want to budget out for it. But if there's unused money for community development, it's going to go, I think going into that fund to then gain interest and help that is a good idea.
Along those same lines, though, we've got some other ideas in order to, again, generate funds without having to go to the taxpayer.
Jump to that? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
that's your next thing.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
one of the things that when we're promoting this that we don't want to do is we want to be able to promote it to everybody, but there's not enough money for everybody to be able to take advantage of the
I mean,
program.
hold on, that depends on what interest we've gained, right?
Right.
If we've only given out one loan every
As of
the
right
last
now.
3 years,
Well, but we don't. We've
Right
given
now.
out 5 loans in the last.
but hold on, now, that's also a good thing though. Oh, I've got multiple people wanting this loan. I've given all I can, and you're on the list. That generates interest. It's okay for that to happen, yeah.
That's not my point. My
Yeah,
point
no, I'm
is
sorry.
that right now in the last
Sorry, Debbie.
5, no, that's okay. 5 years we have loaned out $200,000.
That's-
Okay, so we've done pretty well.
Yeah.
Right now, if we were asked to loan out 200,000 more, we don't have it, right? So, and basically what I'm leading up to is how we're going to fund this without taking it from the general fund. So we have another fund, it's the Turtle Crossing Fund. It's a money market account that was set aside, originally started by the developers of Turtle Crossing, who then split on us, and we were able to keep those funds because they basically defaulted on what they were supposed to do. Those funds have been sitting in this checking account over the past several years, and not really used because, as we know, that development has not really gone anywhere. However, to do our due diligence to Turtle Crossing, we need to keep these funds in this account because the actual subdivision is not finished. If something needs to be done out there at our expense, we have these funds to do it.
Essentially, the money is restricted to Turtle Crossing.
It's not, well, it's not.
It's an internal
Yes, it's in
restriction.
yeah.
But it's
It would be it would not be.
it would not be ethical to
for
take
us
the
to
money
spend
and
it.
spend it
Correct.
elsewhere,
I
since
get
the
it.
money was expected to be spent in Turtle
But you're
Crossing.
requesting that we move that interest that we've earned off of that to somewhere else.
To the revolving loan fund.
Yeah.
And the intent of that would be to give back that interest to the community in some way where it would benefit the community as a whole. Developing the downtown area is something that will do that because it generates revenue that we can use in the general fund to apply across the board to benefit the community. So the calculations that we did, we went back to the original amount that was in the Turtle Crossing Fund when the developers left. That money was invested in a CD, and then it was taken out of the CD and put into this money market account. And long story short, over time, it generated $50,232 in revenue. I'm sorry, $50,232 in revenue.
Interest.
I'm sorry, in interest. That's above and beyond the account balance. So our proposal is to transfer that interest into the revolving loan fund to help build that, which as of today would bring the account to approximately $219,000. Once the rest of these loans outstanding are repaid, which will be completely paid by 2028, we would have close to $260,000, provided we didn't loan anything else out. In the meantime, if we did, we would do that as the administrator suggested, at a small interest rate that would help continue to generate revenue above and beyond the money market interest that we get now. That would require council approval, so we can't really do anything tonight.
So this is the other reason why I stayed here tonight. Okay. So my question is, Mike, are we still mowing that property over there in Turtle Crossing, the strips, when you walk into it, the strip of grass?
The median?
Yes, the median.
Yes.
Okay, so, hallelujah, we have money that we could take and turn that strip of grass into something that doesn't need to be mowed. And I would say, I'm perfectly fine with moving that $50,000 minus whatever cost it is to landscape that area so it doesn't ever have to be mowed again because it's Turtle Crossing money, or take from that 216, I don't care.
Yeah, we
but-
could use regular funds
Because
for that.
because that's money and equipment that we're using from the city to maintain property that we should never have been maintaining. So this, I did not know this fund existed, but I would vote, not in this meeting, but in another meeting, to say, I would want the city administrator or
Could take that out of the
The balance.
principal.
Yeah,
take
sure.
$10,000 or $5,000, whatever it is, out of the principal to turn that median strip into something that doesn't have to be maintained ever again, you know.
That would be an appropriate use of
Appropriate,
those
sure,
funds.
yeah.
Yes,
It would-
absolutely.
Right, and that's all I'm saying, because it goes into Turtle Crossing.
Yep.
And that way, we don't have to mow it, we're not damaging our equipment, we're not using, wearing our equipment, we're not using personnel for it anymore, we're done with it.
So
So-
whoever wants to develop it, if they want to turn it into something else, they can spend the money. to
Well,
do
it's being developed now. The problem is it's being developed by individual
Yeah.
lot owners, so nobody really has the responsibility of the common area.
it. Pave it over, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Um,
Fill it in.
Fill in with gravel.
Yeah, fill it with concrete,
Sure.
gravel, whatever's cheap.
Pea gravel or
At
something, yeah.
where they're doing building recently.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yes, is being built in that subdivision, the area that he's
Could
talking
we have
about?
used those funds as the incentive to fund the reductions in the fees they paid?
I think so.
We could be as creative as we want with those funds, as long as they're applied
As long
to
as
Turtle
it's spent
Crossing.
in Turtle Crossing.
That's a good point. I mean, we could use that.
The other option that I had suggested internally was if we needed to do road work in that subdivision, instead of using MFT money, we could use this money. So if you needed to resurface in those streets in that subdivision, you have 200K available for that kind of infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, if we could use it to incentivize more building without actually losing the fees and making the school district unhappy.
That's an option too.
It would be a good use, I think.
Be a better use, I mean, outside of the interest that it's been bearing, that'd be a better use than letting it just sit there. Actually applying it towards getting houses built, we'll make more money back off of it with those houses built, and we'll be sitting there gaining interest.
Okay.
Good one, Charlie, I like that.
And that's not a budget item, that's an account, a special revenue account that we don't budget for, so that's something that can be brainstormed and discussed at any time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, is this something that goes to the city council to move this?
To
To-
move the funds to, yes, you would
Yes.
need a resolution, I think, is all you would need to do to make this happen.
So, Mike, do you want to add that to the agenda for?
Can,
And then, and if there's no well, I mean, we can't vote on anything, but I really think those medians need to be eliminated. So we are not using our equipment, we are not using our man hours to maintain that, because we were never meant to do that.
Oh, it's been a bone of contention for a while.
Taking care of you here, Mike. This is me thinking, because I remember when this came up.
And it's, the residents themselves, so just for our listeners, if you're listening, the median that is on Sage Street or Sage Avenue, I think it's Sage Lane, is the entrance into Turtle Crossing. And so when that was built, before I moved to this community, they wanted to have this kind of grandiose entryway, which had that median in the middle. And the expectation at that time when that was created is that the housing association would create, and that would be created for Turtle Crossing, that the dues that they pay in would maintain those common areas, including that median. Unfortunately, the housing association never developed or never transpired, and so the median went unkept for a long time. And I, as mayor, just made the decision, we'll just go mow it because it was absolutely horrible. And none of the neighbors within the subdivision were interested in taking care of it. They didn't have an HOA to make them take care of it, and so it fell on the city. So I'm in agreement with you. You know, it was never supposed to be city's responsibility to maintain that area, and we do have these funds available. We could create some kind of landscaping thing in that center median that would
Nothing live that has to
Yeah,
be maintained.
that takes away the requirement to continually mow it.
Yeah.
So whether that's gravel or concrete or asphalt or rubber or some kind of surface
Not
that,
mulch.
yeah.
AstroTurf, right? Turf left over
So,
from the school district
That's
project.
certainly up for city council's discretion
Yeah.
to make that
So can we get
happen.
that on the agenda somehow so we can discuss that? Or should it go to a committee first? I'm trying to figure out how we address this and get this done so it happens this next summer, we're done with it.
I would say let's put it in his committee
let's
as
just-
for, because it's public property at this
Yeah,
juncture.
yeah, development.
Development.
Yeah, we'll
Then
take
we
it-
can-
we'll
Then we
hit it.
can knock it out. We'll do
Yep.
it next month. We'll knock it out.
Get it out of there.
Because I agree with you.
Discuss it.
I think, my opinion is that the full balance of that interest go to the revolving, and we pull out of the principal.
Yeah.
To pave that over with whatever.
Is there a
fill with
community
quick
development
reorder.
meeting set?
No, we were gonna set one at the next council meeting.
So could we get prices for different options between now and then so they
We-
can decide?
We can look into it.
Yep.
Could that be considered road work? You could move it to the transportation committee and get it done next week.
You have to take it out of sidewalks or something, then, wouldn't you? I don't want to take it out of sidewalks or any of that.
No, you would still take it out of
You just
this
take it out of this
fund.
fund.
Keep
yeah.
in mind, we don't have any actual quote yet on how
Right.
much to
We
take
need to
out.
figure out how much.
At the end of the day, nothing's gonna happen until it goes to city council.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking to go there quicker. but
I see.
No, it just
I
goes-
don't, it's,
It doesn't matter.
yeah, there's no time
It's not-
requirement to get this one
It's
done.
not,
Right.
Get some.
There's no
pricing from,
urgency there.
Like Public Works.
Just
on
trying to help,
Just
that's
dumping
all.
some
Fair
gravel
enough.
or some leftover crap that we've got sitting
Yeah.
around in there.
How big of a space is it?
It starts, I don't know, it's wide enough to get a small lawn tractor on, and is the length of about, I don't know, 5 lots, maybe.
So we're not talking a lot.
No,
No,
We
But-
probably.
but it's enough that
it's a pain.
it's
You have
a
to get the
pain
tractor
because-
out there
because
and,
Public Works has,
Yeah.
because
Parks.
Public Works has to go over there and bring the equipment over to maintain it, and it was something we were never supposed to do. So the entire community is subsidizing doing this, that the Turtle Crossing subdivision should be paying for directly.
Do we have any gravel fill left over from the water treatment plant?
Mulch, we got a bunch of mulch, right? Throw that. No.
So, good suggestion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's fine. We'll get it done on our.
No,
agenda.
yeah, we'll get it on the agenda. We'll knock that out because I agree. Let's get it. Let's not talk about that anymore.
So,
and-
so this will be the $50,000 will be on the city council.
Yes, we can put that in the
Perfect.
city council.
Awesome.
Can we, when we do discuss that, can we just put it in there on that agenda to discuss Charlie's suggestion of how we use that for future funds, or can we just, at that point, just give policy to just carte blanche, use it as you need to, the principal? For for development fees and whatever, because I like his idea because we can offset that and not have to pull out of the schools or anybody else, and we've got a couple $100,000 to work with if it brings
Well,
interest.
we can talk about that all at the community development.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's on the agenda,
Yeah.
if we
I've-
have to
I've
put
made
that on
that-
there.
potential uses of the
But, okay,
funds.
yeah, just as long as the wording's there, so that way if we decide something, we can vote on it then.
That's it. That's all I got on that.
We had the proposed ordinance
Yeah.
coming up next.
So, right now, we have this would be a new section to chapter 20, under fees and charges. What this essentially requires, as you're aware, there's been buses carrying migrants and being dropped off at various locations throughout Illinois. What this does is essentially say that if you're going to drop them off here, or anybody over 6 passengers.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
this
I knew
ordinance,
you were gonna catch me on
yeah,
that.
this ordinance is a bus ordinance. That is the only authority that the city has to be able to regulate, is to regulate buses. So, that's how the ordinance is written, and it's written in such a way that it allows, the city to be notified in advance if someone is going to drop off a bunch of passengers within the city, and allows us then to be able to help coordinate that effort. And so other communities have been enacting similar ordinances, and so felt that it was important to bring this before the administration committee and ultimately city council to determine if you want to enact such an ordinance.
Mike, I was reading through this, and we need to. I agree. This community needs. Every community should protect themselves against like this, because basically what's happening is it's malicious and intent, regardless of people's belief on whether it's right or wrong. The intent is malicious behind it, but the dropping the people off, not the ordinance. My question would be is. It would require for them to notify us, but if they didn't, and obviously broke this, the fees and fines, our legal recourse would be to go after the bus company itself.
Correct.
We would not, and that would be the limit of our ability, I guess, legally to seek restitution would be to the bus company only.
Correct.
We would not have the legal right to be able to go after whatever entity chartered the bus company.
Correct.
No, because this is a bus ordinance, so you can only regulate the use or basically the use of a bus. And so in this case, if a charter bus were to deposit a bunch of passengers, they really need to give the city notification, and that's really what it's looking at. Now, what I will say on the heels of all of that, in every instance where this has happened in the local area, in northern Illinois, the passengers that get off the bus got onto the train. And so, in every instance that happened, there was no consequence to the community where they picked up the train. But this does allow us, I think our concerns are if someone was to decide to deposit passengers outside of a scheduled train, outside the train schedule, we do not have the resources from the city's municipal standpoint, municipal resources to house these people or provide temporary shelter until the next scheduled train departure. There may be an opportunity, we think that we're exploring is local not-for-profits who may be willing to step up and coordinate that kind of effort should that event actually happen. But from the city's perspective, this is just simply trying to ensure that if someone does come here to bring passengers to connect with transportation on the train to downtown Chicago, that those passengers have adequate capability to get onto the train and are not deposited into, especially in winter weather, to hang out in a parking lot for several hours. Let's assume they came at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's going to be several hours before the next train, and we don't have the resources to help anyone in that kind of situation. So that's the intent of the ordinance. Other communities have passed this. We're presenting it to you as a city council to determine whether you want to enact such an ordinance.
My opinion is that I agree with it because aside from the fact that the notification is obviously important, our fellow communities that have experienced this, in a situation where people are dropped off in the middle of the night with inclement weather, deficient clothing, really an understanding of where they are or the inability to speak any local languages, creates an emergency services situation that is absolutely absurd. And while those other communities did rally and come together and were able to assist and do some pretty miraculous work and selfless work to get things handled, it the fees are what I really want to make sure that we are able to have some kind of legal restitution, that if a bus company, whatever it is, if a bus company was to pull something like this, that we have the ability to go after them for any and all costs involved, because obviously we're going to help whoever it is that needs it in our community. But I just want to make sure we have teeth in this.
The ordinance is written in such a way that allows us to operate within the letter of the law.
So does this require a coordination with train times?
Well, that would be the intent, to try and if we were notified, hey, there's a passenger bus coming to connect to the train, we would try to encourage them to come close to a train departure so that the passengers have
That's the rub.
Yep.
I mean, that's what needs to happen. The rest of it, I don't know. I'm not, because it looks like a revenue. I mean, if you just look at it from the outside and you don't know anything, it looks like a way to, the city's trying to get more revenue out of it. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're not really interested in revenue.
I know, but it seems, I'm just saying,
sure.
From the outside, it seems to me like at a minimum we need to add a whereas, and that is, whereas we are concerned about these people and their health and their well-being. And we don't say that. We say we're worried about the well-being of the town, but we do not say we are worried about the well-being.
point.
But we have to limit it to the bus, being a bus ordinance and not.
It's a whereas.
specific.
It doesn't actually, it's the reason for the
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah, if we're able to word some kind of intent, I think that's a good idea. I mean, at least just because, just say we're doing this for the safety of the people, both the residents and the potential passengers from harm. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is just prevent somebody from being
Right.
malicious or negligent and dropping off any, I mean, if it was a busload of nuns getting dropped off at the train stations 6 hours early in a blizzard, I mean, it'd be the same thing,
So it sounds like the third whereas you want to expand that, because it says, whereas the city of Harvard cannot safely and effectively address a sudden and unexpected arrival of large volumes of individuals in need of assistance.
Yeah. I just think
That's what it says now.
it's
Correct.
not that we mentioned immigrants earlier.
Yes.
And I just think that their well-being should be,
So instead of individuals, can we just change that to immigrants in need of assistance?
Well, I think large volumes of individuals in need of assistance, I mean, that's what's written in there.
yeah, that's general, and that's fine, because it could be some other group, I suppose, a bus full of
could be
nuns.
anybody. I mean, in theory, it could be anybody. I
But-
mean, it could,
Well,
just
so
a negligent bus company.
The analogy I used was, if a college or university, Northwest, wanted to drop off a bunch of students to go downtown Chicago, obviously we wouldn't expect that they would drop them off at 3 a.m., but this would be a way to try and prevent that from happening, because, they're going to
Yeah,
hang
I
out.
guess it doesn't have to say immigrants, but it has to say how about just saying, somehow mentioning the passengers, I think,
Okay.
because that's my concern, it really is. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like to be dropped off at, let's say it's the last train in, because we're the last stop, and the next one isn't until 5 a.m.
Right.
We have nowhere to go.
Or worst case, they drop it off and it's it's 5 a.m, or it's even later because it's a weekend train or something, like a Sunday or whatever.
Well, the worst case scenario would be, because the last train out is like 9:30 or 8:30, depending on the evening. If they drop them off at 10 o'clock at night, those people would have to find shelter until the next morning, and there's not,
That's the second thing I wanted to talk about that's separate from the ordinance, and that is, we probably should develop a written policy of, what we will do in the meantime. I mean, in other words, what agencies would we contact? What is a procedure that we're gonna follow?
Add a page to our emergency response plan.
What information do we need from the police department, to make sure we can check the records to see if they're,
So, I was just gonna jump in on that. So, our first, plan right now is, that we contact the county emergency management. They've already started, they already have a system in place. But most immediately, I've already started coordinating with, the local churches about being able to provide space, and we actually do have, as of yesterday, it was Monday, we did receive some care packages from Woodstock. I think it's up to 41 packages that include like warm coats for various sizes, various male,
This is
female.
beautiful, Lou, this is fantastic. And that's what we should do, is we should combine the announcement of this ordinance with that information that you just gave me.
Right.
Because I think that would really send the most positive message that we could to the public, both, the entire population. This would ease, I think, the Hispanic community.
So we already have in place, a cursory plan, but we want to enhance that plan by engaging other nonprofits here in
Yep,
town
yep.
to help.
Yeah, but I think
So
we just
we have a very core plan developed and ready to go, so if a bus came tonight, we have some ability to do things, but we're trying to make it more robust than our current plan.
somebody from the paper is gonna wanna know, I see you pass an ordinance and they're gonna interview.
Oh, sure.
We should just be ready, and, it's not just the ordinance, we're also concerned about this, and this is what we have in place.
Well, I think having it out public on Facebook and social media will be important too, because I mean, with other communities that have experienced this, I mean, our constituents are probably, they're gonna see a Greyhound bus drive through town just to get, just drive through up 14, and they're gonna panic. So,
If it hasn't already happened.
I didn't want to, I didn't want to go there, but yeah. So I think that if we do make it an apt point to publish and say, look, we already have this figured out. We don't anticipate this happening, but should it happen, it won't impact any of the residents in any way. We will have it handled.
So to be clear, we have a plan in place.
Yeah.
We haven't necessarily published the plan because there's not really been necessarily a need, and of course, we're still developing additional plans to enhance that plan. And once we have that all coordinated, I have no problem with publishing that information. I will say that we're probably a higher target community simply because we have a train station here in town. Whether we actually will happen here, do not know, but we should be prepared, and so we have been preparing, and this is one of the steps in that preparation.
Good. Well, if we had a full committee, I'd say go for it.
Will does the committee have to pass this to go to?
No,
City
we can go
Council?
straight to city council. So, and that would be my expectation, is I'll put on the city council agenda.
This coming meeting? Okay. I'm not opposed to that. Charlie, are you okay with it just going to city
Yeah.
council? Okay. I mean, I know it's not a vote, but I have no problem.
But we take your suggestion on making that
Yeah,
tweak.
I'll
And of
make
course,
that
when it
tweak.
goes to full city council, if other members of the council want to make other additions or changes, you obviously still have that discretion.
I'm just, I'm in favor of you just doing that and not pushing the issue to bring it back again. Okay, any new business?
Two things. February 7th, we need another admin meeting. Lisa's already aware of it.
I can't make one on February 7th. It's my wife's birthday, so I'd get in big trouble for that one.
How about the 8th?
I can do the 8th.
Can you do the 8th, Charlie?
I think.
Okay. I don't know if Lisa can do the 8th. I know she could do the 7th, but we'll ask.
I mean, I can't do the 7th. If everybody else can do it,
We gotta have a quorum, so.
yeah.
And then the 26th for budget workshop, what's that look like for you guys?
February 26th.
Yeah, it's an all-day Saturday. I'm sorry, the 24th,
Looking at the calendar going,
yeah.
it would be the 20th.
I don't have any I mean, say it's a Saturday, so I don't have any problem as of now. I mean,
Jay?
Not my committee.
No, but it's the budget workshop.
Oh, the
so-
26th is Saturday?
24th.
24th, I'll be there, yeah.
and we're just
Charlie?
doing the all day, one day.
Yeah, we're gonna do it all in one day.
What are we having for lunch?
I don't know yet, that's a big guy's decision.
Ian,
Have like a big fondue fountain.
We'll readdress this
Open
city
bar.
council and nail it.
Yeah, I
Guys
just
don't
wanna
do it.
throw them
We
out
need a
there.
bar.
Okay, that's it.
That's a good suggestion.
all right, since there was no quorum, there's no.
No, we
motion
don't need to adjourn, so,
Go adjourn.
all right.
All right, well, thank you
Thank you
and
for your time.
good night.
I like
That
your
was fun.
suggestion. Deb,
Yes,
Jay suggests an open bar for the budget.
I suggest one right now.
Hey, no, think about it. Everybody will get everything.